So, Call of Duty, a series most people probably know by this point, one of the best-selling game franchises of all time, 425 million sales across 29 mainline games, plus a whole bunch of spin-offs. I recently sat down and had a look at my game collection and realised just how many Call of Duty games I own, and how many I haven't actually played. What I want to do is go through every single Call of Duty campaign and rank them. You know what they say, Duty calls. Quickly before I get started, make sure to subscribe and like the video, it really does help me out. Today we'll be tackling Call of Duty, the OG title released back in 2003 for the PC, with veteran developer Infinity Ward at the helm. The game did later get a port to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but today we'll be covering the original PC version, with a few fixes to facilitate modern niceties like 16:9 widescreen support. Call of Duty takes place during World War II and has you playing as soldiers from the American, British and Soviet armed forces across 26 action-packed missions. The game kicks off with the American campaign, with you playing as Private Martin, a member of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. In this first mission, Martin completes his training at Camp Toccoa, with this acting as a tutorial getting you accustomed to the controls. Straight from training, Martin is dropped into Normandy in order to set a landing beacon for the airborne infantry. Troops end up scattered and Martin ends up in a mixed unit with soldiers from various companies. With a new ragtag team in tow, Martin and company storm the nearby town of St. Mary-Glise and disable a few anti-aircraft guns. After successfully taking the town and holding off the German advancements, the Allied forces start to take mortar fire, in addition to more inbound German infantry. After dealing with those attacks, Martin, along with two other soldiers, are ordered by Captain Foley to head back to Battalion HQ to request additional reinforcements. Martin and his fellow soldiers hop into a car and head on their way. On the drive up Highway N13, they're met with more, you guessed it, German infantry. After taking heavy damage from a tank, the lads are required to find a new car, which luckily the small town nearby has, and then onwards to Battalion HQ. Once the team arrive at Battalion HQ, they're shipped out to infiltrate Breakout Manor, with the mission being to destroy German artillery wreaking havoc at the Utah Beach landing. Upon completion of this mission, Martin and the team are picked up to carry out some special operations behind the German front line. The newly assembled special operations team is then tasked with storming a castle in the Bavarian Alps in Germany. The goal is to rescue two British prisoners and recover intel while doing so. Once inside, only one of the prisoners is found in the castle, that being none other than Captain Price. Now obviously this isn't the same Captain Price as in Modern Warfare, but it's probably his pop or something. Anyway, the other bloke, Major Ingram, isn't anywhere to be found and it's discovered that he's been moved to another location. Ingram is then tracked to a prisoner camp in Austria. On arrival, Martin and the team approach the camp and begin an assault, with German troops setting off alarms and requesting additional reinforcements. The team has 10 minutes to find and extract Ingram before these reinforcements arrive. Against all odds, the team then grabs Ingram and escapes successfully. It's at this point that Call of Duty jumps across to the British campaign, but don't worry, we'll be seeing Martin again soon. During the British campaign, you play as Sergeant Evans, a soldier of the 6th Airborne Division in the British Army. Evans' story begins as he accompanies more 6th Airborne Division soldiers in Operation Tonga, with the goal of capturing Pegasus Bridge. The team is dropped in around midnight on June 6, 1944, and begin their assault. The mission is successful and the bridge is captured. Around midday the next day, the German forces retaliate. This opposing force includes tanks as well as infantry. The British forces manage to hold their ground until friendly reinforcements from the 7th Parachute Battalion arrive. Evans is now picked up by the SAS and tasked with destroying anti-aircraft artillery protecting Ida Dam. Evans is successful in his mission and destroys all of the German artillery, as well as destroying the generators powering the dam as a contingency. Captain Price comes to the rescue and picks up Evans in a stolen German truck for their grand escape. Also on board the truck is Sergeant Waters, voiced by none other than Jason Statham. I've just put that in here because I thought that was really cool. Evans, Price and Waters then make their way to a nearby airfield, with German vehicles in hot pursuit. Once the lads arrive at their destination, Waters and Price commandeer a German plane, while Evans takes to a nearby anti-aircraft gun to shoot down attacking Stuka bombers. After escaping the German airfield, Evans, Price and Waters are tasked with infiltrating the German battleship known as Tirpitz. Evans and Price board the ship disguised as German troops, while Waters stays in the escape boat they used to board. Evans plants explosives around the ship and is also tasked with recovering documents concerning the plans of the German Navy while on board. Evans successfully makes his way back to Waters on the escape boat, but Price is killed in action. Now Call of Duty once again shifts gear, and we start the Soviet campaign playing as Alexei Ivanovich Voronin. I probably absolutely fucking butchered that. As he is shipped across the Volga River towards the Battle of Stalingrad. On the way across the river, many of the other barges carrying troops are destroyed. Voronin is then forced up the hill towards machine gun fire without any weapons to defend himself. On the way up the hill, Voronin meets Sergeant Borodin, a Soviet sniper. Together with the other Soviet infantry, they push up and overwhelm the German machine guns. Soviet forces then make their way to Red Square, where they are met with heavy German resistance. Verona manages to flank the dug-in German troops and eliminates a number of German officers who are calling in reinforcements. The Soviet forces then successfully capture Red Square. Voronin is now tasked with making his way through a nearby train station to reach Major Zubov. Upon reaching Zubov, Voronin is promoted to junior sergeant and tasked with making his way through the sewers to reach a nearby apartment building that has recently been occupied by German forces. Voronin successfully navigates the sewers and reaches the apartment building where he's met by Sergeant Pavlov and his unit. Together they storm the occupied apartment building, capturing it. It isn't long, however, before the Germans launch a counterattack, where Voronin, along with Pavlov and his unit, must defend the building. The building is captured and defended against the onslaught. Here time jumps a few years, and we pick up with Voronin promoted to sergeant. Now, along with his new unit, the 150th Rifle Division, Voronin storms a German train repair facility in Warsaw. The unit secures the facility and heads off to meet with the 4th Guards tank army. Upon meeting up with the 4th Guard tank army, Voronin is tasked with commanding a tank, and alongside several other Soviet tanks, makes tracks towards a town near Oder River. Once at the town, Soviet forces are tasked with eliminating German anti-aircraft weaponry and any remaining infantry. The town is then secured and all German forces removed. And now we jump back to our American pal, Private Martin. In Martin's final mission, he is tasked with clearing 2 German bunkers and recovering documents as he goes. After both of the bunkers are captured, the Germans launch a last-ditch effort and send their remaining tanks and infantry at Martin and his unit. The Germans are defeated and Martin's story is brought to a close. Next we take control of Sergeant Evans again, where he and his unit must destroy Germany's V-2 rockets. Evans and the lads must fight the Germans at the site and plant explosives on the rockets. At this stage, it's discovered that the unit didn't bring enough explosives. Evans, being the absolute fucking Chad that he is, picks up and throws one of the V-2 rockets at the others, destroying them all. Not really. Evans uses his massive brain and fuels the rockets using the fumes from the fuel to provide extra explosive pizzazz. The rockets are successfully destroyed and the British forces head for a nearby extraction point, wrapping up Evans' story as well. Finally, we jump back to Sergeant Voronin in the Soviet campaign. In this final push, the Soviet forces make their way through Berlin in an effort to reach the Reichstag, which is the German parliament building. The Soviets force their way through the German defences and make their way to the roof of the Reichstag, where the iconic victory banner is raised. This ends Voronin's story and consequently Call of Duty's complete campaign. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Call of Duty and surprisingly it holds up really well even by modern standards. Growing up I absolutely loved the World War II setting and tried to learn as much as I could about such a massive conflict in human history. I think my preferred World War II shooter title will always be Medal of Honor Frontline, but it absolutely cannot be understated about how much of a fucking massive media juggernaut that Call of Duty has spawned. At the time of filming this video, the Call of Duty franchise has grossed a whopping $31 billion, coming in just under the entire MCU, which has grossed $31.3 billion, and above the entire Batman franchise, grossing $29.6 billion. It's kind of crazy to think that a game codenamed the Medal of Honor Killer during development not only succeeded in putting the Medal of Honor series into the big bedge in the sky, but also spawned what is essentially the household name in first-person shooters. Current estimates at the time of writing estimate that Call of Duty has sold around 4.5 million units worldwide, which is nothing to scoff at coming in under Black Ops Cold War at 5.7 million units. Call of Duty was also a critical success with 91 on Metacritic from 44 reviews and a user score of 8.4 from 1,302 ratings. It also came in at number 5 for top PC games of 2003 according to Metacritic, losing out only to Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, F1 Challenge 99-02, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and that is some very steep competition. As for the actual game, my total playtime clocked in around 7.4 hours according to Steam, which is close to the estimated 7-hour runtime. From that total runtime, I have 2 favourite missions of note and one that was not the best. My first favourite is the 7th mission in the American campaign where you free Major Ingram from the German prisoner camp. I usually hate timed tasks in games, but this mission feels so tense with already overwhelming German forces while the clock ticks down to even more soldiers arriving. My other favourite mission is the infiltration and destruction of Ida Dam in Mission 3 of the British campaign. This mission just stands out and feels the most unique to me, even compared to the tank missions from the Soviet campaign. And my least liked mission would have to be the very next mission where you escape from Ida Dam in the truck with Captain Price and Sergeant Waters. The mission is definitely the point where I was most frustrated during the whole experience. The shooting while flying along in the back of a truck just didn't really work that well. As I mentioned earlier, most of the actual gameplay for Call of Duty holds up surprisingly well, at least on mouse and keyboard. Where the game didn't age so well is the hitboxes and hit registration. This can be a bit funky sometimes, especially during the missions where you're in a vehicle, though this probably shouldn't be surprising as this is still an issue with the modern titles. I'm looking at you, Warzone 2. Teammate AI can also be frustrating at times, walking in front of gunfire, ending up in your teammates being downed, or throwing grenades in confined spaces, which also damages you. We are talking about a game, though, that was released 20 years ago, so some jank is to be expected, especially when you're going with modern standards. Surprisingly, the tank controls also in the Soviet tank missions were quite polished, and I think that's a massive win in my books, because even today, some tank controls feel a bit fucked. And one thing I'd definitely say this has over some modern Call of Duty games is the soundtrack. This era of World War II shooters just had some fucking amazing soundtracks. Two tracks in particular that I'd like to point out is the main menu music, which is just amazing, and the music during the last mission where the Soviets capture the Reichstag. So as we go through the entire Call of Duty series, I want to rank them on a tier list, which I know absolutely has not been done before. I put the first Call of Duty in the A tier. It's a solid shooter and overall a great ride start to finish. There'll be many more of these videos to come, and next up will be Call of Duty United Offensive, which is technically an expansion to this game, but it also has a standalone campaign, so we're going to do that separately. Make sure to leave a comment too and let me know what you think of the OG Call of Duty game, or if you've never played it, if you plan on giving it a crack now. And I just want to thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on here and watch some bloke crap on about a first-person shooter from 2003. And as always, have a good one.